This gave me the like leg
It's
kicking.
so good.
It's the moment that we've been waiting for. Hey everybody, this is Kat.
And this is Rachel.
And you're listening to the Smut Peddlers podcast, a show for people who love books, especially when they're smut. We discuss our likes, our dislikes, and share all our favorite moments with you.
Today, we are finishing Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas, so grab your favorite beverage and get ready to burn with us. Part 13, our final part of the tandem read through Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. We've been reading in the romantic order. We finished Empire of Storms last episode, so this episode is just the last bit of Tower of Dawn, which is chapter 58 through 69.
So excited.
Do.
This was good. This section was so good. This section alone, maybe that's what it was. I originally, after I finished the end of it, went 5 stars. Clicked 5 stars. And it's because the end is 5 stars. The last 100 pages, what we cover in this episode is 5 stars for me. Just
sure.
that section. So then I was like, oh, I have to factor in the rest of the book. 4
Yep.
stars.
That's the problem. And this is what was hard. This is what was hard for me is like, I rated it 2 stars when I did the first read of it ages and ages ago. I read it before Empire of Storms because I knew about the cliffhanger. And it was physically painful.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 stars is like what I gave it. I still did write in the review that I wrote that you still have to read it. Because it does have like a lot of information in it that you're just gonna fucking lose. And it's like, it's really important information that you need, okay? Mm-hmm. To go into the last book. So you still have to read it, but I just really didn't enjoy it. I will never in my life ever recommend anyone read this in any way other than the tandem read. Because it is good as a tandem read, in my opinion.
Yes.
That does not mean that this book is good. Or not that the book is good, because here's the thing. I don't necessarily believe in the idea of like a book is bad or a book is good, because there are people out there that will like it and it's just this book's not written for me. Like this was not my vibe. I didn't love Chaol to start. So like having to read a whole book about Chaol, I was not going to like it. I was set up for failure, okay? And then I got through the end, and I was like, all right, fine. But my main complaint with this book was that, to me, this book was meant to be Chaol's redemption story. And I did not feel significantly different about Chaol at the end of the book than I did at the beginning of the book. Which is why I was like, bad. Didn't like it, because it really didn't make me like Chaol anymore. I was just still like, all right, Irene deserves better. But I like Irene a lot. So like, it's still worth the read. But it's good. I like the tandem read. It's good as a tandem read.
Yeah.
Because at least every time I get pissed off by Chaol.
Is the tandem read, because I got breaks. I got breaks from it. If I sat down and read it as one thing, it would be Crescent City for me.
Yeah. No, I'd be on
like,
board. I can see that.
Kill me. I hate this whole beginning.
Right. I'll continue to say it. I think that I read Crescent City at exactly the right time for me. I was ready for like a higher fantasy, more complicated lore system. Like it hit me at the right time. So I have a different perspective of it.
I read it directly after ACOTAR, which is a terrible idea.
Which is not, that I would not.
I wouldn't recommend that again.
I'm gonna say that one was on me. Because I was like, just read them all. You gotta read them all back to back.
Yeah, and that was the wrong play. Out. Yeah, the third book of Crescent City was coming out.
You're right. I was like, if you're gonna read the third book.
If I were to do it all over again, I should have read Throne of Glass first.
Oh, and then you really would have had to take a break. Because that's the problem, is it's like, yes, there's an order that you could have read them in, and it would have made that last book really hit real good. But
Throne of Glass should be first, then
there's
ACOTAR, then Crescent.
it's not realistic unless fantasy is your fucking shit and you can just read 100,000 pages of fantasy with no break and be happy. If that's your jam, great. Read all 3 series back to back. Do it. If that's not your jam, you gotta take a break at some point, because then you're just not gonna enjoy the other ones. Like, I've had people that I've recommended fantasy books to them, and they're like, I just didn't like it. I got bored. Like, it halfway through it. And then I've had those same people tell me, like, oh, I reread it after I went and took a break and read other things. And now I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. And I'm like, yeah, because sometimes you just need a minute. So I think I'm actually impressed with how well we've both been able to make it through this series, even though we have been reading some stuff in between some of the other books. But it's still like 26 episodes. 25 episodes, technically. Because I think we had it's like 20 episodes. We had a couple of one-offs in there.
Yeah.
It's a long time to be reading the same series. It's all fantasy.
Last week I read 2 different contemporary romance books.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I was ready. Like, I was ready to dive into these last 2 sections because I read my 2 contemporary romance. I'm like, okay, now I need a little more plot. Give me a little more plot. That's fine.
You gotta tell people what you read.
What did I read? I read... I'm trying to remember. My brain is so into Tower of Dawn right now.
You read Business Casual, right?
Yeah, but before that, I read The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year first, and that shit was great.
Oh, yeah.
I highly recommend that. It is comical. It is very funny. I very much enjoyed it. I had a very great time reading it. And then Business Casual, which is The Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borson. It's like part of that series. Yeah. The Lovelight Farms, in and of itself, like, that first book is so
There was
good.
another one, though, because I just read the one that you had said came due. It was, like, on Libby immediately. I just read it.
That was, like, before our last 2 episodes.
Oh, that was before that, too?
Oh, Brain, no. Come on. I'm looking at the cover. Like, I can see the cover of the thing. The cover art. But I didn't actually have the... Yeah, Savor It by Tara DeWitt. Savor It by Tara DeWitt, fair. Also fantastic.
Yeah. Just to anyone who is like, you can't even remember the name of the book you liked. Dude, I reread so many books. Okay. Yes.
See,
Tara DeWitt, Savor It was very good.
The reason I can't remember the names of things is I have an issue with recall as it is. So the fact that I do a podcast about a book that I read, I have so many notes about all the things I read because if I was just going off the dome about what's happening, every character would be incorrect. Every single one. I'd be like, this person said this. Nope, that's not true. This person said this. Not true.
This is why I have tabs, dude.
Yeah.
Because I can't recall what happened in a book.
I read Paint the Picture.
I read Scythe and Sparrow.
Yeah.
I read Scythe and Sparrow. And I was struggling to remember which couple was which. Because I can remember storylines and stuff. Like, I can get the general gist of things that that had happened. Mm-hmm. But they started, like, bringing up the old characters, and I couldn't remember the names of which couple was which and what happened in which book.
That's just what kind of did with like the B.K. Borson.
Oh,
but then I remembered, like, as it was happening, I was like, oh yeah, Layla is this person, and then Everett is this person, and Bennett is this person, and you're like, oh, perfect.
I got Sloane and Lark mixed up at first because Lark is the second book and Sloane is the first book, and I mixed them up. And then I was like, why is Lark is with the
Lachlan,
table. Like, yeah. Oh my God, it's so good.
If you know, you know. And Sloane,
still one of my favorites,
makes the maps.
Yep. And the fucking ice cream. God damn it.
Sloane is the accidental cannibalism.
Yeah. God, such a great
Best trigger warning.
best trigger warning. Although this one, Scythe and Sparrow has a trigger warning about a coked up raccoon or some shit like that. It was so good.
Ugh.
A drugged up raccoon or something. It was so funny. All right, let's get into it.
Our recap is
Really
very,
not a lot to
very
recap.
short. So in our previous episode, we talked about Nesryn and Sartak and Falcon all kind of coming back to the like Rook Avery, whatever it's called, Airy. And they received a letter from Chaol to say, hey, we need you to come back as soon as possible. And of course, Nesryn's like, we have to leave now because Chaol never asks for help. Which, fair.
So if Chaol's asking for help, things are bad. We gotta go.
It must be very, very bad. And this is, of course, after him and Irene have figured out how to destroy kind of the darkness inside of him. And figuring out that Irene is a lot stronger and knows a lot more than maybe we anticipated, which I fucking love Irene.
And they have some very, very key information as well, Sartak and Nesryn, that needs to get back to them, which is that Maeve is a Fog Queen, which is so dope.
Yeah. So going
and then
into
they got
this...
a haul ass please back to help all of our friends, because also in last episode, shit hit the fan in the end of Empire Storms, and we gotta find Aelin, please. So
yes, we have to find Aelin.
Go home. Help.
So I finished Empire Storm and completely forgot, not necessarily forgot what was happening in Tower of Dawn, but the first scene is Irene and Chaol like waking up in bed together, and all I wrote was, oh yeah, Irene and Chaol be fucking. Forgot about that. That's how we start.
We were a little busy, okay? There was a lot happening.
There was a lot of bad happening, and so my brain was filled with bad and forgot that, like, oh,
and then
like
also the last bit of Tower of Dawn is like shit starting to hit the fan in Tower of Dawn. So, yeah. That's the back of our minds. Great. They're happy. We got other problems. Yeah. So they're still happy.
Yeah. In this scene, Chaol opens up a lot more to Irene and tells her about Selena and Endovier and kind of how she came to be in the Otterlin Castle, and then tells her about Aelin, and then tells her also about kind of Dorian and the collar and Sorsha, like that whole ordeal.
She's
like,
getting
pretty much
like
has told
the Cliff Notes version of everything we've read up until this point.
Correct. Yes.
From Chaol's perspective, at least.
Yeah. He also tells her about Aelin fighting the King of Otterlin. Aelin and Dorian fighting the King of Otterlin. And explains that Aelin burned the Volg demon out of the king, but did not kill the king, which triggers a huge thing for Irene, because she assumed that she could push the demon out of Chaol and not injure Chaol. So this whole idea, Irene compares it to like a tapeworm, which I also find funny.
A parasite, which is fucking great.
Yeah. Irene believes the Volg are like parasites, shadows and parasites. So they live in the body and feed off of the body. In this case, Volg feed off of like anger and depression and kind of all of the like negative feelings that people have and that darkness. And the reason she realized that was that she was scared of her own darkness. And even though she didn't have Volg inside of her, it was still like a parasite in her, feeding off of her fear of Otterlin and fear of all these other things, which I think is fantastic. And Irene also thinks that she, with her magic, can heal anyone who has been infected by the Volg. Meaning anyone who has a collar, anyone who has a ring, potentially could have saved the king if she was there. Similar to like Aelin. Yeah.
they realize that it's probably why Erewhon has been hunting her so aggressively, realizing that, like, she is the one that would have the knowledge, and that they don't want her to have the knowledge or realize it by healing Chaol.
Yeah. Chaol then also tells her about Athriel's ring and how that was how, I don't know if he tells her that's how Aelin saved Dorian. She slipped Athriel's ring on Dorian and it like counteracted.
I think they were just
The
talking
collar.
about the ring, and like he was giving. I
think he was putting pieces
until
together.
no, because he said until Aelin purged the Vogue from Dorian and the king, but there's a ring. It belonged to Athriel, friend of King Brannon and Maeve. It granted Athriel immunity from the Vogue, but it was lost to history. Only one of its kind. Aelin found it. And Maeve wanted it badly enough that she traded Rowan for it. Legends say Mala herself forged it for Athriel, but Mala loved Brannon, not Athriel.
This is where we get like talking about some secret lore.
I thought this was really cool.
Yeah.
So they start talking about like a tapestry that used to be in Aelin's room. It showed a stag and hid the entrance to where the Wordkey tomb was. So like the door that they kind of would go into.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an owl amongst the forest animals, but it was Athriel's form, not Brannon's. All of that was coded. The tapestry, the tomb, symbols upon symbols, but the owl, we never considered, that the owl might not be Athriel's animal form, but his sigil because of his loyalty to someone else, which was Silba, which is the goddess of healing. They realize that Mala did not make the Ring of Immunity. Silba made the Ring of Immunity. And Silva was a healer. So they're like putting all of these pieces together, that the power to grant immunity or cure people from Vogue did not come from Mala's fire, but instead comes from being a healer.
So they make this recollection. Of course, I have the knowledge of Empire Storms and they do not.
Yeah.
So I put in parentheses, or Athriel. So we have this note that Silva created the ring. It is very possible that Silva did and gifted it to Athriel in some manner. However, we learn we learned a while ago in this book that Maeve may have taken this area, like the Fae Kingdom, for a purpose. And the purpose was she is surrounding herself with healers. It's very possible that that is how she got the ring to begin with, because she surrounded herself with Athriel, who would not be a warrior, would be a healer. And it's his ring in some manner. Whether it was gifted by Silva, created by Silva, or created by Athriel, I don't know. But my theory is that Athriel could potentially still be alive, or some descendant of him.
Of
Athriel. And she keeps him close because she, has a pet owl that is always seen with her. A pet.
Yeah.
Pet
there
owl.
There is an owl that's always with her.
So my thought is like maybe she somehow froze him in his owl form and Athriel's still alive and being held very close to her.
I don't remember what happens to Athriel.
The idea was that he died.
Well, the thing is that Athriel's dead, and that's why she wants the ring in the first place, is because it's valuable to her because it was her lover's or whatever.
Yeah. But that's what we were being told.
Right. No, I'm on board.
Yeah. So that's why when they came to this conclusion, I went, Athriel's alive. He's the owl that's with her all the time somehow. And he's a healer. And he's connected to Silva in some way, whether a direct descendant or just similar to Irene, where she is a descendant of Silva in the sense that she has Silva's power.
I'm enjoying that it's been so long since I read this book. than this series that I'm sitting here being like, honestly, couldn't tell you either way. Don't remember it not being a thing. But like I didn't remember the end of this fucking book, so could be. Really don't know. We'll find out together. So they make this realization, and they're like, well, gotta go to Hafiza, gotta figure this out right now. And they're like, yep, great, gotta go. Before they can even do that, though, doors burst open, and Hussar walks in, noticing their lack of clothes and disheveled hair, and goes, well, at least you two are enjoying yourselves.
Yep.
Which is great. But then immediately is like, I've got news. Fucking Hussar, being herself, is like, oh, just that Queeve Maeve's armada managed to find Aelin Galathinius, managed to find the host that Aelin Galathinius has been so sneakily patching together. That was quite the battle.
Yeah,
Fucking
so pretty much they're told that
details out of Hussar is painful as physically possible. So
they
she's
receive
like, what are we doing?
that Maeve and Aelin are fighting or have fought.
Yeah.
So it's coming back that people, their spies or their eyes in other lands have come back and told them, hey, these two large people, like have large factor people they just fought.
Yep. She tells them that Maeve was trounced.
Woo!
Though there were some interesting details. The princess rattled off the facts. The numbers: a third of Maeve's armada bearing Whitethorn flags and turning on their own Terrasen fleet. Dorian had held the lines with Rowan. Then a pack of wyverns had stormed in from nowhere to fight for Aelin. Manon Blackbeak Chaol would be willing to bet his life somehow, either through Aelin or Dorian, that witch had done them a favor and possibly altered the course of this war. Nice. They mentioned, like, all of the magic, ice and wind, rumor of a shapeshifter, no darkness, or whatever Maeve fights with, and no flame.
This is the first time anyone has said that Maeve potentially fights with darkness.
Yeah, but no darkness or whatever Maeve fights with, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And
no flame. So
she
Aelin.
she rattles off some more information. But then at the end, she says they were victorious. Aelin was spotted returning to her armada hours later. They've sailed north, apparently. We all now know that it's not actually Aelin. It's Lysandra as Aelin that has gone north.
Correct.
They learned that there were no major casualties to any. She says to their
large
men,
players.
Yes, but not to any of the interesting players.
Yeah, any of the interesting
and then
players
mentions,
is great.
But Maeve, there and gone, not a whisper of her left.
Which is
they
exactly
mentioned that she
what
just
saw.
Disappeared.
Yeah, that she vanished.
Which is crazy.
Which is exactly what Alid saw in Empire Storm. Was she got on the ship and then the ship went poof, gone.
They also find out that, Chaol asks, where did they go? And she says, probably to Terrasen, now that Aelin has her armada and another one. Another armada? Turns out Aelin called in her debt to the assassins of the Red Desert. The silent assassins of the Red Desert. And to Wendlin. How many ships? He breathed. All of them, Hussar said, hand on the door. All of Wendlin's armada came, commanded by Crown Prince Galen himself. Oh. Turns out there are quite a few people who think highly of her, and who believe in what she's selling. A better world.
Which is what?
Hussar! We also learn... Am I gonna like you? What the fuck?
We also learn in this conversation that Aelin not only sent letters to the silent assassins and sent letters to Galen, she sent a letter to Hussar. I assume it's what she tried to sell me when she wrote me a message weeks ago asking for my aid from one princess to another. What did Aelin promise you? Hussar smiled to herself. A better world.
Wild.
What a great way to end a fucking chapter.
When does she have the goddamn time? Like, what the fuck? She's sending letters everywhere.
Yep.
My God.
After this conversation, Chaol and Irene still have their plan. Chaol has said to Irene, I'm going to make one last attempt to the Coggin, and then we have to leave. Like, I have to go north. And he would, obviously, he asked a while ago if she'll go with him, and she says, like, she's gonna go home with Chaol. And so their first step is to get Hafiza and give her all this information and try again for kind of the books that she has, which we know have
They need the
marks
books
on it. Yeah. They
go to try to find
bolt
her
to the Torre. And Chaol is like, which we love. He can quick walk now.
Oh yeah, because he can run.
Yeah. He be running. So they get to her office. He also, which I think is hilarious, is he's panting, bracing a hand on the wall of the landing to Hafiza's office
steps.
because he's like, how are you guys sadists? Like, how do you guys go up all these stairs all the fucking
Whoever
time?
built this thing was a sadist. Because the tower is got just like a fucking million stairs in it, dude.
And of course, he like looks at her and she just runs up it like it's nothing. And he's like, I'm the warrior and I can't fucking breathe.
Well,
it's so good.
His legs haven't been working for a while. I'll give him. His stamina is probably not what it used to be.
Yeah. I still think it's just so funny.
It's fucking hilarious.
So they get to her office.
Hafiza's not there.
Yeah, she's not in her office, but the door's open to her workroom and her office.
Yeah. Not ideal.
Irene notes that the books are still in their place behind the lock iron door, which we like that. That's a good thing. But she's not there, and the key's not there. But we know the books are in the thing, so at least that's like a good symbol. That when she said, I noticed the books were still in the iron case, I went, we're fucked. Where's Hafiza? Where is she?
Yep.
This is bad. So they, of course, went directly to the next person, the next healer.
Yeah.
And asked, have you seen Hafiza? And they're like, it's Arisha. She says that Hafiza is in her office. And they're like, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. I saw her go in there. Well, she's not there. Well, then she's probably somewhere else. Like, not a big, leave me alone kind of thing. Of course, Chaol is on fucking edge. Irene is also on edge. So Chaol says, I'm gonna alert the guard that Hafiza is missing. And this was before they started looking other places. So they start running around asking everyone, have you seen Hafiza? Literally everyone says the same thing. She is in her office or her workroom. No one knew where she went. And so they told the guards that she was missing. Then Chaol asks, pretty much, what are the ways in and out of the Torre? And there is a back entrance where deliveries and things come in, and then the main gate, which is where everyone goes through. And he's like, are you sure there's nothing else? And Irene pretty much says, there is a rumor that there are tunnels in the library. Our favorite. We love tunnels in libraries. Nothing bad ever happens with tunnels in libraries in this series at all. Definitely not. So they, of course, Chaol tells the guards to find Hafiza. She's missing. And then the two of them take off to the library. I really liked this because once they get to the library, of course, the first person they run into is Nusha. And Nusha is our head librarian. And anytime anyone asks for anything, she cannot be bothered. Like, in the least.
Yep.
She's like the grumpy old librarian. She's like, leave me alone. I don't care about your troubles. However, she notices Chaol's hand on his sword and like the panic in his eyes. And she asks, what is wrong, pretty much? And they're like, Hafiza is missing. We think that she has, like, where are the tunnels in the library? And she goes to ring the bell of like alarm, and Chaol's like, Irene grabs it so it doesn't ring, and Chaol's like, if you like alert them, you will alert the person who has taken her as well.
They'll know that they're like coming for them.
Yeah. So
they do let her like summon the guard,
yes.
but like more quietly so that she can go and get the guard and like have them come down after them, but not alert, you know, everything and set off chain reaction of doom.
What I thought was really cool is when they ask Nusha, because we love the cats, and they play a very big role in this scene, in my opinion. It's kind of like not really a huge role, but it's a nonchalant little like ode to them being like protectors.
Yeah.
When they ask, where are the tunnels? The ones they boarded up, where are they? Behind her, a storm gray bast cat leaped up from its vigil by the hearth and sprinted into the library proper. He's like, just follow me, I'll show you. This way. Just come this way. I'll show you. I'll show you where you need to go. Nusha eventually tells them directions, and Chaol tells her, quietly get the guard. Like, alert the guards as quietly as you can. Do not use, like, yelling or the bells or whatever, because we need them to not know that we know what's going on. So they book it to the tunnels. And they go down and down and down. It gets darker. They describe it as, like, less and less lights, less and less cats, because no one wants to be fucking down here because it's terrible. Similar to the fucking dungeon portion of the library in Heir of Fire? Queen of Shadow? One of those.
Probably. One of them.
The Otterlin Castle, when they go down to the library, it's just like, the lights are more sporadic, and it gets dark and dusty, and then it's less book and more scroll, and then, you know, the ground is dirt.
Less book and more scroll is so good. Oh my god. That's grand. I love that. Chaol tries to get her to stay.
Yeah.
She's like, fuck that, we're doing this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't put up any other protest, which I think is fair. He's like, you should stay.
She's like, no,
she's like, no. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever. This is a losing battle, we're going ahead.
Yeah.
So they go down. Chaol knows it's a trap. He's like, there's no way that they would take the healer on high and not know. Like, without them knowing that they would come. So...
yeah, and they're very aware that, like, whatever this being is specifically after Irene. They've figured that out long ago.
They took her as bait. 100%.
Yeah.
They go down, and they make it all the way down to the bottom, and this fucking chamber is filled with gold. Like, think National Treasure level of gold. That's what I thought about, okay? It's all my brain did when I got to this scene, and they were like, you go into a chamber, it's just filled with gold. My brain just had the scene where they put the, like, light, the fire in the light, and it goes down and down and down and down. It's a huge room with gold in it.
Tons of gold.
That's all my brain was doing. Yep.
I pictured
scattered amongst it were sarcophagi, not from gold, but impenetrable stone. Are we sure? Are we sure there's stone? Are we sure it's stone? Did we look? How closely did we look? I'm just thinking maybe it's not stone. I'm scared. A tomb and a trove. And at the very back, rising up on a towering dais, Irene let out a small sound at the sight of the gagged and bound healer on high, seated on a golden throne. But it was the woman standing beside the healer, a knife resting on her round belly that made Chaol's blood go cold. Duva, the Coggan's now youngest daughter, smiled at them as they approached, and the expression was not human. It was Volg. Well, said the thing inside the princess, it certainly took you long enough. What the fuck, dog?
So, Duva, who is described as the quiet sibling, the one that they all of the siblings protect because she's with Chaol. They've kind of come up with this, like, Even no matter who becomes the next Kagan, the next heir to the throne, Duva gets left alone because she's our innocent, happy. She's not really in the war scene. She's just kind of existing and is with Chaol. So like we protect Duva. So of course, no one suspects that Duva is gonna be the one that has a Vogue inside of her. Which is, great.
It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
So we learned so much in this fucking chapter.
Mm-hmm.
The point, she's brought them down there to make him choose. He has to choose saving Duva, who's pregnant, the healer on high, or Irene Towers.
The princess smiled and whispered again, Irene. And that voice, it was the voice from the night that she was in the library by herself and she heard someone say her name.
Because villain's monologue, so she'd be monologuing. Okay.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to figure out it was me. When I destroyed all those precious books and scrolls, I thought you'd certainly realize I was the one who hadn't gone to the party. But then I realized, how could you suspect me? She laid a hand on her full womb. It was why he chose her to begin with. Lovely, gentle Duva, too kind to ever be a contender for the throne. Do you know Hussar tried to take the ring first? She spied it in the wedding trove sent by Parrington and wanted it. But Duva snatched it before she could. She held up her finger, revealing the broad silver band, not a glimmer of wordstone. It's beneath, she whispered, a clever trick to hide it. And the moment she spoke her vows to that sweet, lovesick human prince, this went on her hand. And no one ever noticed. Except for keen-eyed little sister. Tumalin suspected something was wrong, caught me poking about in forgotten places, so I caught her too. Or didn't. I suppose, since I shoved her right off that balcony. Such a wild, impetuous princess, prone to such moods. I couldn't very well have had her going to her beloved parents and whining about me, could I? Ugh. You should have heard how she screamed, Duva. How Duva screamed when I pushed that brat off the balcony. But I shut her up fast enough, didn't I? She again brought the knife up to her belly and scraped over the silk fabric. So she's just been, like, this Vogue has been controlling Duva, basically threatening her child.
Yeah.
Yep. Ugh. It's so sad. We also find out that, like, why we've, like, everything's confirmed, basically, of, like, why they're doing this. It's that, like, the Dark King, Erewhon, whispers about a healer blessed with Silba's gifts has entered the Torre. It made him very, very wary. Because I can wipe you all out like the parasites you are. Fucking Irene. Let's go!
I like that Chaol shot Irene a warning glance because, man, maybe let's not put all our cards on the table right now.
Yeah, but also...
Maybe let's not tell the lady that is in front of us who's Vogue that we could wipe the Vogue out of her.
This is where I'm like, Irene, Aelin, they're gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Because they're, like, very similar. So, we also find out that, like, stuff's confirmed about Maeve and her healers, that she's been doing the same thing, and that's why the healers have been, like, so treasured by Maeve. Mm-hmm. Her prized favorites, those Doranel healers, her secret army. That she has been, like, keeping these healers and as, like, protection for her when the Vogue come, if the Vogue come. Because it's the only way that she knows to like cure anyone that she might want to keep around.
Yeah. This is where we learn that this Duva's Volg, like, we don't know if this Volg is tied to Erewhon or tied to Maeve.
I mean, she does. She says the Dark King heard whispers.
Yeah. So essentially, then Erewhon knows that Maeve is Volg Queen.
I think that I think he just knows that she knows that healers are
Okay.
important.
That's fair.
Because I don't think that any. Well,
I don't. No.
No,
right.
I don't think he
Why
would,
do you
because
think
Parrington and Erewhon would only have been able to get the knowledge if they knew from the spiders.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they've had any interactions with the spiders.
No.
And the spiders wouldn't have told Erewhon because they're loyal to Maeve.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason we got that information is because the spiders just were like, we're gonna kill you. And
our evil villains
be monologuing, you know? Yeah. Like, they can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They keep all of our good people alive, and they monologue and tell us all their plans. That's just what they do. That's it.
Duva hums, how clever those Fae were. This is exactly what Irene and Chaol pretty much figured out. How clever those Fae were who escaped her clutches after the last war. They ran all the way here. The healers who knew their queen would keep them penned up like animals. And then they bred the magic into the land, into its people, encouraged the right powers to rise up to ensure this land would always be strong and defended. And then they vanished, taking their treasures and histories beneath the earth, ensuring they were forgotten below, while their little garden was planted above. Why, was all Chaol said. To give those Maeve did not consider important a fighting chance should Erewhon return. So noble, those renegade Fae, and thus the Torre grew, and his dark majesty indeed rose again, and then fell, and then slept. And even he forgot what someone with the right gifts might do. But then he awoke once more, and he remembered the healers. So he made sure to purge the gifted ones from the northern lands. A smile. But it seems a little healer slipped the butcher's block and made it all the way to the city with an empire to guard her.
So we basically find out from that it's not just that they wanted to purge all the magic wielders in the north. Erewhon, Parrington, and the king were getting rid of all of the magic wielders because it's the easiest way to just identify the healers. They just got rid of all of them.
Yeah.
So they just killed anyone who had magic, because if you kill everyone who has magic, doesn't matter if they were a healer or not. They're just dead.
Which makes the King of Ireland's last stand of defiance against Parrington or Erewhon the towers to cancel out magic so that they couldn't figure out who had magic and
they couldn't figure out who's who.
Didn't. Which essentially saved Irene. It saved Aelin, but it also saved Irene because she disappeared. She was able to make it out. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
So we can still hate the King of Ireland, but he definitely did a couple things to kept a few people alive. Him himself, not the Volg dude that was protected.
You can't say that he wasn't involved in the saving of his kingdom, okay? Was he involved? Yes. Yeah. He helped.
Yeah. He did what he had to do.
He was controlled by a demon. I'm giving it to him. He gets,
Yeah.
He gets a pass. I know that they didn't believe him. Dorian's gonna have a long time before he comes to terms with that, but I'm good with the king. I'm good. Now that we know more, it's more apparent that he was actually taken over by a demon and wasn't actually
just being a piece of
lying.
Shit.
Yeah, and just being a shitty person.
Yeah.
Which is almost more depressing. I'm sad because that sucks.
So Irene asks, why not kill me? Like, you've had many opportunities
Yep.
to kill me. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
Duva responds, because you are so much more useful to Erewhon alive, Irene Towers.
Cool.
Which scares me.
Yep. She says, Erewhon sent me to be his spy to see if a healer with those gifts, the gifts like gifted from Silba specifically,
Mm-hmm.
might indeed emerge from the Torre, and to keep you from learning too much. Of course, killing that brat princess and the other healers were mistakes, but I'm sure His Dark Majesty will forgive me for it when I return with you in tow. Over fucking Chaol's dead body, will you do that? That's not foreshadowing or a spoiler.
No.
I promise.
No. So, Irene's not gonna go willingly.
No.
And Hafiza is also... Let's not forget she exists in this scene. She's tied up, she's sitting on
here.
a chair. She, like, quietly, not fighting, not doing anything, she doing Hafiza things. And so, while Duva is doing her monologuing...
Yep. She's getting
Hafiza
closer
finds...
to Hafiza.
Well, she's kind of, like, going down towards Irene, I think. To then
because she
attack
ends up
Irene
going... No, she goes up to Hafiza.
Oh.
Because she rests the knife against Hafiza's throat. And that's when Hafiza, yeets herself down the stairs.
Yes. So, Hafiza's at her chair on her throne.
Yep.
Duva is kind of, I don't know. They describe her as being, like, kind of slightly below her because Hafiza, like, just full throws her body into the chair, which takes Duva out and down the stairs.
It literally says she hurled her body, chair and all, the entire weight of that golden throne down the stairs, right atop Duva. Which, like, obviously, the next sentence is literally Irene screamed running for them, so we know it's, like, not great. But also, just those two sentences alone just sound
fantastic.
Comical. Of just this fucking frail old lady just figuring out how to heave her whole body and a golden throne up and on top of another human being, and then they just all tumble down the stairs.
Yep.
It's not unfunny.
Crone and Princess tumbled down those steep stairs. Wood snapping. Wood, not metal. The throne had been painted, and now it's shattered as they rolled, Duva shrieking and Hafiza so silent, even as her gag came free. They hit the stone floor with a crack that Irene felt in her heart.
Oh, it's so bad, but also Crone and Princess tumble down the stairs. Sounds like a real bad start to a nursery rhyme. Why you gotta do her like that, goes, Sarah?
Hafiza, Hafiza and the baby and Hafiza, Crone and Princess. And I'm just like, what a wild ride those, like, 12 words are.
Couple of sentences. Jeez, it's so good.
Hafiza's fine. She's not dead. Like, she didn't die. Unfortunately, neither did Duva. Well, we don't want Duva to die, but, like, we still don't know what's going on.
They panic. They rush up there. Irene sprints, like, right for Hafiza to check on her.
Chaol goes towards Duva to kind of take her out, potentially. Irene knows that he won't kill her because of the baby, but he'd buy Irene time to escape with Hafiza. She turned Duva over and found the princess smiling at her. It happened so fast, too fast. Duva lunged for her face, her throat, black bands of power leaping from her palms. Then Irene was not there. Then she was on the stones, thrown to the side as Chaol hurled himself between her and the princess. No shield, no weapon. Only his back. exposed.
No.
Of course, we gonna break his back again.
Yep,
Because
because
we
we
didn't
can't have
just work so
anything
fucking
nice.
hard to make it better. Utterly exposed as he shoved Irene away and took the full brunt of the Volg attack. So
Chaol's been hit. He's down.
is being hit repeatedly.
Yeah, it's not great.
Duva is slamming power into his spine again and again. Irene lifted Chaol's sword toward Duva, which was on the ground, because he just threw his body in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And Duva is like, that's cute. You think you can fight me with that sword? Sounds great.
I still don't understand why she does this. She throws the sword.
As a distraction. It says she used the throw. This is Chaol's POV too. So it is. Oh God, where is it? Well, fuck it. I think we should just read it because it doesn't.
Was it? I don't think it was Chaol's POV.
It is.
God. I mean, she can't, like, stab her because she's pregnant. Like, I get it, but...
It says she could trap her, get Duva down for long enough. The lash of power. She fought to stay upright with every heartbeat. He faltered. She kept moving, buying any sort of time, rounding a statue. Duva stood before her. Duva snickered. What she had been crawling towards. His sword. Duva snickered, stepping over his sprawled, unmoving legs as she advanced on Irene, as Irene rose to her feet and lifted his sword between them. So it's his POV. What do you think that could possibly do against this? Whips of dark power unfurled and from the princess's palm. No, he groaned the word. And Irene threw the sword, a straight throw, unskilled and wild, but Duva ducked. Irene ran. So it was just, like, it literally was just a distraction.
To get her to stop, like, charging up her thing, she just fucking throws the sword at Duva and then runs. She's like, alright, this isn't gonna work. Throws and runs. Ugh.
And of course, then the next scene is her POV, or the next little part of the scene is she had no plan. She had nothing. No options. Nothing whatsoever. Nope. Chaol's spine. Gone. All that work. Shattered. As she ran through piles of gold trying to dodge Duva. But Duva was on her
actively trying to kill her. And she's just, they're fighting. Like, using magic, Duva gets close enough to her and, like, grabs her. Irene's using fucking moves that she learned in her self-defense classes with Aelin and with Chaol to, like, fight back and not get fucking trapped. And at the same time, like, Chaol's still on the floor, bleeding out. And
yeah, he's bleeding from his mouth pretty much at this point. Trailing blood. Duva finally gets her.
Yeah. She ends up with a dagger.
Chaol had crawled halfway across the path, crawled trailing blood, his legs unresponsive to help her. He stilled, blood sliding from his mouth as Duva stepped into the walkway, pressing Irene against her. Shall I make you watch me kill him, or make him watch me put that ring on you? Irene snarled, do not touch him. And then, as the princess lurched, Irene slammed her palm into the woman's elbow, freeing the arm across her throat. So Irene could whirl and drive her elbow straight into Duva's face. Duva dropped like a stone, blood spurting. Irene lunged for the dagger at Chaol's side. The blade whined as she whipped it free of its sheath and threw herself atop the stunned princess, straddling her. Aim that blade high to plunge into the woman's neck, to sever that head bit by bit. Don't, Chaol rasped, the word full of blood. Duva had destroyed it, destroyed everything. Irene was about to kill Duva. And Chaol was like, don't do that. You're not going to be able to live with yourself, pretty much. And luckily, she didn't have to. So she got knocked out because Irene knocked her out, which I forgot. She elbowed her in the face and knocked her on the ground. So, like, she's knocked out as Irene's, like, straddling her. Pretty much.
Is she knocked out? Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Chaos, like, begs Irene not to kill her. And Irene drops the knife to the floor. and she feels Hafiza's hand on her, like on her shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And she turns, and with Hafiza is Nesryn and Sartak, who are back. And they say, we're too late. But they're not. They're not too late.
So luckily there are now 3 other players who can deal with Duva, so Irene fucking sprints to Chaol.
Yeah,
who is
it's not
dying.
Who is definitely dying.
He's on his deathbed.
It's not good.
Her power flares into him, but there was only red and black everywhere. Too much, too many broken and torn and ravaged things. His chest was barely rising. He did not open his eyes. Wake up, she ordered him, her voice breaking. She plunged into her power, but the damage, it was like trying to patch up holes in a sinking ship. Too much, and shouting and steps all around them. His life began to thin and turn to mist around her magic. Death circled, an eagle with an eye upon them. Fight it, Irene sobbed, shaking him. You stubborn bastard, fight it. What was the point of it, the point of any of it, if now, when it mattered? Please, she whispered. Chaol's chest rose a high note before the last plunge. She could not endure it, would not endure it. A light flickered inside, that failing mass of red and black. A candle ignited, a bloom of white, then another, and another. Turns out, as she's pushing her power through him, Hafiza has her hand on her shoulder, and there is another healer with her hand on Hafiza's shoulder, creating a chain of healers. And they are all funneling their power to Irene to save him, which is so sad.
The damage is too great. There must be a cost if it is to be repaired. Those lights seem to hesitate at the otherworldly voice. The voice that was both Hafiza's and the other said again, there must be a cost. For what the princess had done to him, there was no returning from it. I will pay it, Irene said into the pain and dark and light. A daughter of Fenharrow will pay the debt of a son of Otterlin? Yes. She could have sworn a gentle hand brushed her face, and Irene knew it did not belong to Hafiza or the other, did not belong to any healer alive, but to one who had never left her when she had been turned into ash on the wind. The other said, you offer this of your own free will. Yes, with my entire heart. It had been his from the start anyway. Those loving phantom hands brushed her cheek again and faded away. The other said, I chose well. You shall pay the debt Irene towers, and I hope you shall see it for what it truly is. Hafiza stood behind her, Arisha at her side, each with a hand on her shoulder. Behind them stood 2 healers each, hand on their shoulders. Behind them 2 more, and more, and more. A living chain of power. All the healers in the Torre, young, old, stood in that room of gold and bone, all connected, all channeling to Irene, to the grip she held on Chaol. Nesryn and Sartak stood a few feet away, the former with a hand over her mouth, because Chaol. The healers of the Tory lowered their hands, severing that bridge of contact as Chaol's feet moved, then his knees. And then his eyes crept open, and he was staring at Irene, her tears plopping onto his blood-crusted face. He lifted a hand to press her lips. Dead? Alive, she breathed, and lowered her face to his. Very much alive. Chaol smiled against her mouth, sighing deep, and as he said, good. Irene raised her hand, and he smiled up at her again, cracked blood sliding away from his face with the motion, and where that scar had once sliced down his cheek, only unmarred skin remained.
They healed his scar on his face, too.
He's all healed now.
That's like healing a little chapter of his life
symbolic.
That he regretted. It's
so good.
So
Chaol wakes up pretty sore
yep,
because he got fucking toasted in
got
the
his
back.
spine taken out and put back in twice now.
Nesryn and Sartak are there. How did they make it down there?
I wrote in all caps, cats led them to them. So as they look back, a bunch of bast cats who were just kind of lounging around at the top of the stairs turned to leave. They brought Sartak and Nesryn to them. Like, they asked, like, oh, the cats kind of showed us where to go.
So good.
Just all the cats. We love the cats. I'm so happy that they played a bigger role in this than just existing in the library, because I love them so much.
So,
unfortunately, or fortunately, I think it's kind of unfortunately, but, you know, we have learned that when magic is involved and when we are bringing people back from the dead, magic likes balance, no matter the god or goddess. And so, we learned that
I don't
Aelin
think
was
it's unfortunate
dead
at all.
No, I think it's fortunate.
I think it's dope, actually.
Yes. The balance part is like they can't just do something
revealed,
good.
Yeah, it is revealed that, like, the deal, basically, that she made... Chaol's pissed, by the way, because he's like, why did you do anything to save my life?
She likely made a fool's bargain, pretty much.
Yeah, she didn't. I think it's a solid deal. The deal is, they're linked together now. Their lives are tied. Like, they have one thread in, like, the fate thread, whatever. So, if he dies, she dies. If she dies, he dies. And their power is, like, totally connected. So, like, as long as she's at strength, she's got her full power, whatever, he can walk. If her power wanes and she starts getting tired, he can't walk. Like, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, her power acts as, like, a brace internally to his legs and back.
You know,
so
the
similar
same way
to
that,
what
like,
Lorcan would do to the lead, yeah.
Yeah. Fucking
Which, when they said, I went, oh, that's kind of cute. I like that.
It is nice. I like it. But I also think that it's the first time that I'm, like, she feels terrible because she's like, I wanted to be able to heal you. And he's like, I am no less of a man in this chair than when I'm not. And I'm like, Let's got there! Chaol. Let's go! Just fucking, 625 pages to get there? Fine, we'll take it.
Death will claim them both together, and they will go to war. Chaol, of course, looks over at Nesryn and is like, hey, yo, you and Sartak?
Hey, how you doing? I see you.
They make eyes, and eyes in the sense that, like, they apologize to each other, kind of, like, in that moment.
Chaol
goes to her and hugs.
I'm sorry, he said silently, and she says, I think I did just fine.
So good.
It's so good. Like, I did just fine without you. I'm good. We're good, man.
Chaol smiled, then I am happy for you. Nesryn wiped away her tears as Chaol closed the distance between them and embraced her tightly. Thank you, he said in Nesryn's ear. She squeezed him back. Thank you for bringing me here to all of this. It's just the moment they needed. And they needed to close that circle.
The both of them literally go, we gotta talk about some shit. He's like, yes, for real.
Yeah.
So they also like tell Sartak, like, she's not dead, but, like, here's what's happening. We got a problem. You know, they had been discussing earlier about how Irene can't test her theory without getting close to someone who's infested with fog, which they didn't have access to. Well, problem solved. We found Duva, who's got a demon parasite feeding off of her body. So, God, test subject now. Oops. Yeah, so they go to the Coggin.
Hafiza puts her in some, like, trance sleep, which I think is sick.
Hafiza puts her out, which is awesome. The what is it? I wanted to say the king, but that's not right. The Kagan comes in, bunch of like viziers and other people come in. Everyone's like freaking out, talking about what's going on. And then they start explaining what's happened. And fucking Argun is like, no, that's not true. They're lying. Shut the fuck up, you little shit. Caution believes them. Sartaq fucking believes them. Argun's being a little piece of shit and like trying to say that they're not telling the truth about the Duva being the one that killed Tumaloon. And the Kagan basically is like, I don't really care right now. I need someone to save my daughter, my now youngest child, because I've already lost one.
Yes.
And Irene is basically like, she's the only possible chance that they have. Because no one else can save them, for sure. And Irene is like, I gotta test my theory. Although she's not particularly jazzed about having to test it on the fucking princess.
Yeah.
So, also, who's pregnant?
You know what's also fantastic? So we know Argun was being a piece of shit.
Yep.
Hafiza pretty much is the one that says, shut the fuck up.
So they're being...
These are lies Argun
like,
seethed. Yeah.
Ugh.
These are lies Argun seethed from desperate scheming people. They are not lies, Hafiza cut in, chin high. And we have witnesses who will tell you otherwise. Guards, healer, and your brother, Prince, if you will not believe us. To challenge the word of the healer on high, Argun shut his mouth. A.K.A. Hafiza said, shut the fuck up, boy.
Sit down and shut up. Put your ass in a chair and silence yourself.
Yeah.
So good.
I read that and I went, fuck yeah, Hafiza, let's fucking go.
And like, that's when Caution comes up and is like, she has not been the same.
Mm-hmm.
And Argun is like, she was the same. Caution's like, you spend no time with her. How would you fucking know what she's like? Shut up. Argun's the fucking worst. He makes me angry.
Yeah.
I will not be sad if they choose to fucking take him out.
Yeah. So Caution believes them. And that is like, this is the point in time where we're like, okay, Sartaq is on their side. Duva is on their side because she knows. We need Hasar, Caution, and Argun. In this moment, Caution's like, yeah, I believe you.
Well, I think Hasar's on side. Because Hasar's the one that comes and gets them originally.
Oh. No, it's at I thought it was at the end of this. Hasar says, I owe you a life debt or whatever.
Hasar officially, yes. But I think, like, that bit from before when Hasar comes in and is like, she wrote me a note and promised me a better world.
Mm-hmm.
Is, like, that first bit that we're meant to, like, believe that she's open and, like, could come on side without too much argument.
I didn't read it that way. I read that as just Hasar being Hasar.
I mean, it was like, mostly Hasar being Hasar.
Your queen tried to convince me, but clearly I'm still here. And I was like, all right, yeah. Hasar, shut the fuck up.
I read it more as, like, because she does bring the information to them willingly.
That's true.
Like, Aelin lives. I think Hasar just can't help it. Part of me is like, she just can't help it. Yeah, like...
I read it as, like, she's just trying to stir the pot. She's trying to make them, like, frustrated and angry.
But I think that she does that whether she's an enemy or a friend either way, if that makes sense. Like, she
Which is why I didn't read that as, like, she's kind of pushing onto their side. I just read it as, like, it's just Hasar being Hasar.
Yeah.
Until she says, I owe you a life debt, then I'm like, oh, she's in.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So Irene goes up to the princess, and she, like, tries to heal her.
She puts her magic, tendrils of her magic go out onto Duva's hand, and they wrap around the ring and pull the ring off her finger like it was nothing.
And Duva, like a possessed demon, just starts fucking screaming and, like, flailing, freaking out. Sartaq and Caution have to, like, hold her down, and they're panicking. Like, they're freaking out because they, like,
Argun, of course, is like, you're hurting her. We're like, Argun, shut the fuck up.
Shit.
Just stop talking. Let her do her. That's when Hafiza goes, let her work.
Hussar immediately tells him to shut up and says, let her work. Someone fetch the blacksmith to crack that damn ring open. I was like, yes, let's go.
As we know, it's not actually Duva who's screaming. It is the Vogue that's inside of her. Because the Vogue is losing its tether to Duva in the act of removing that. It's the same thing that happened with Dorian when he cracked the choker. I always call it a choker instead of collar. He cracked his collar off. It inside of him, he felt it cowering. And Aelin was pushing his power into Dorian as well to like kill out the Vogue that was inside of him. So it was a very similar process. Duva doesn't have that same magic to push back on the thing, so it can hurt her, similar to Chaol. Like Chaol's Vogue power being inside of him showed as pain. So there is a very good chance that like it is defying her body in a pain response. So I pictured it as like Duva's not actually in pain. It's the Vogue that's like being crushed in some manner. That's like outwardly
I'm sure
doing stuff.
I'm sure the demon is in pain.
Yeah.
So she like pushes her power into Duva's chest. And the Vogue is like screaming that they'll die. And Irene is just, I am not afraid of you, and you have nowhere to run.
Mm-hmm.
She thrashes.
She tells it you're a parasite, which is made me so happy. She's like,
yeah. Sorry, there's something in my eye. Why now? We're so close. Please. Okay, I'm fine. Huh. She says pathetic. Utterly pathetic for a prince to prey on helpless women. I am no prince, but a princess, and my sisters shall soon find you. I'm sorry, what? Sorry, what? Hold on, what?
This is the thing that made me think, is she actually working with Erewhon? She calls him the Dark King, but then we know that Maeve is considered, from our backstory that we get, Maeve is considered stronger than Erewhon as a Vogue Queen versus him as the Vogue King, because she was tied to another one who was more powerful.
Well, this is the first we've heard about any female Vogue.
Which is why
other than her as
Maeve.
The queen. But like the ones that go into other people. Like the fact that they're inhabiting the other people. Because the thing that's weird is Maeve and... Well, I guess that's one part that we didn't talk about. Or we haven't gotten to. No. Erewhon has a body and is just still in Parrington's body. Right?
Is he?
But is Maeve... That's the thing, is I think Erewhon is still in Parrington's body. Because when they talk about it, they're always, like, people who don't know that it's Erewhon still refer to him as Parrington.
True.
But, like, is Maeve in her own body?
Well, she's playing the part as a fake sister. So she had to create a body. Right, but that's the difference.
Is it's not... That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not like she inhabited one of the sisters' bodies. Like, is she in her own body?
She inhabited a shifter and then created an image that she wanted.
Oh,
I don't know. I think it's her own body, but she just has the ability to manipulate what
That's what I'm saying. But then, like,
her.
Why are the rest of them not in their own
This is why
bodies?
I think... So this is what I'm saying is Maeve, the Queen Vogue, is stronger than Erewhon King Vogue. Which makes me think that princess versus prince... Princess is stronger than Prince Vogue.
Thanks, I hate it. I mean, I love it if that's true because I like women are better anyways. But hell yeah, girl power, even when it's bad.
Yes, that is why when
Jesus,
we got the like princess, I went, oh no, they're gonna be much stronger than the princess.
It's gonna be worse.
Yeah. This is the point.
She gets revealed. Yeah. It's revealed that the thing in Duva is a princess, a Vogue princess, not a prince.
And then she done died it. It's fine.
She did, and then she gets fucked. Like, it's
Yeah.
done. Irene
Blasted away.
wins. She's a badass. She, like, collapses to the floor. And Duva starts coughing, twisting to like onto her side.
She starts puking.
Yep.
Of course. Get all the Vogue blood out of her body.
There's a lot of... It's not great. Only black smoke broke from her lips. She's like throwing up black smoke, which is kind of cool, but also terrifying. And then she like passes out. But she like is alive. And like color comes back, and her husband also like fucking breaks in at one point and is like freaking out. He like actually loves her, and it makes me so happy. And also a little terrified because like how much of the time that they had together was her and not the demon. Anyway, I don't love it.
We don't need to think about that part.
I'm a little scared. To be fair, she didn't get infested by the Vogue until the wedding, and it did say that the prince was lovesick the day of the wedding. So it's like to think like he liked her before, so it's fine. They check on the baby. Baby's okay. Baby's good. Baby's human, not creepy Vogue, terrifying baby. Great. Good. Couldn't deal with anything else at this point right now, please. Duva wakes up and confirms everything, which is great.
Yeah, I think it's great. The way she wakes up is like, Irene pokes and prods the baby with her magic, and the baby kicks, which rouses Duva. Yeah. Her eyelids open.
With an oof. She literally audibly is like, oh, god damn it.
Yeah.
Healthy and human, we're good. And then Duva is like, yep, all of it's real.
The worst part is, of course, Argon is the one. Is it true, Duva? And everyone's like,
Christ.
She just fucking, she was just, you were here. You watched
Did you really kill your sister?
You watched the thing occur. You
and
watched it. And yet you're like, hey, your eyes are open now. Is it true? Give her a fucking second, my guy.
No, he has no tact whatsoever.
Of course,
the Empress comes in as well.
It's true.
Yeah. She says it's true. The Empress comes in, freaking out. And the Kagan is like anything. Ask it and it's yours. Mm-hmm. Irene did not hesitate. The words tumbled from her lips. A great favor, great Kagan. I would ask you a favor.
We also get the note. We get to see in real time how her magic affects Chaol, because once she's done using her magic, he's in his chair.
Yep. He's like, she's tired.
She apologizes to him, and he says, it is of no concern to me that you are helping someone and that I might be like negatively impacted. And he hauls her on her lap and then like wheels her. Like he's in his chair and she's on his lap, and he's still like caring for her because she's exhausted.
It's so nice. Work.
We do also learn that it takes a while for him to get control of his body again in that manner. That even if her power like charges up, it takes a bit for it to go back into him to kind of brace him. Which I held on to that little nugget. I read it and I was like, that seems like
it's almost like she has to build her power back up and then it has to heal him. Like, correct. There is a process involved. It's not just like she takes a nap and he wakes up and everything's great. Like, there's time involved.
Yeah. So it starts off that he's using the chair, and then he can stand with his cane, and then he has the cane with him just in case, but he doesn't need it, and then he's walking again. So it's kind of this like phased sort of thing that he does.
So now they finally, now that everything's a little bit more calmed down. I mean, shit's still not great, but now they just have a fuckload of information that they really need to be sharing with each other. So Nesryn and Chaol and Irene all are like basically recap all of the information that they have for each other from the time that they were separated. So like Vogue, Maeve being a Vogue queen, Athril and like the ring and shit, the just knowledge dump between the two of them. And they're basically all just like, we gotta go. Oh, and Nesryn also finds out that Aelin now sails north to Terracin, and Armada with her, the witches as well, or just the 13. They're not sure.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know if it's like all of the witches or just the 13. And Sartak also says that he's going to commit half of the Rukin to go up, but to like fly north as well. And he says that half are 1,000, which is Chaol's like, fuck yeah, great, awesome. That's a lot.
1,000 rooks would fight alongside the wyverns.
If we can join Aelid's host, along with the 13 and any other Iron Teeth Manon Blackbeak can sway to our side, we will have an aerial legion to combat Moraths. And if you can heal those infected by the Volg, we still need to find a way to get their hosts down, long enough for Irene and any others to heal them. As well, as you said, we have Aelin Firebringer fighting for us, don't we? If she can produce flame, surely she can produce smoke. I might have some ideas. Unfortunately, that's not actually... It's fine, we'll get to that. It's not Aelin, but it's fine. They're gonna find her. It's gonna be fine. Hussar shows up in this moment.
They ordered all those fire sticks. It's fine.
They ordered fire. It'll be fine. Fire sticks. They just have like torches with fire on the end of them.
Like the blowtorch, but fire stick.
They have flamethrowers. That's what they are. Hussar shows up and is like, seems late. Seems like I'm late to the war council. Fuck off, Hussar. Whatever.
Sartak is being like a little shady, like because we still don't know if she's like on board. But this is when she says that she'll go with them.
She says, "Yep, the princess only looked to Irene and Chaol. I will come with you." Chaol did not dare move. Irene said, "Alone? Not alone." The mocking amusement was gone from her face. You saved Duva's life and ours if she had grown more bold. A glance to Sartak, who watched with mild surprise. Duva is the best of us, the best of me. Hussar's throat bobbed. So I will go with you, with whatever ships I can bring, so that my sister will never again look over her shoulder in fear. Except in fear of one another, Chaol refrained from saying. But Hussar caught the words in his eyes. Not her, she said quietly. All the others, she added with a stark look at Sartak, who nodded grimly, but never Duva. They had all, like, agreed that Duva was not to be, like, touched. No matter which of them... I don't fucking believe for one goddamn second that Argan... Whatever. Fuck Argan.
Maybe not Argan.
I think they all would have banded... I think they all would have banded together to fucking kill Argan if he gets made heir, because I don't think any of them would have believed that Argan would have stuck to his end of the bargain with protecting Duva. But they all were like... Duva's not to be touched, no matter who becomes heir. Which is so cute, because she's just a sweet, sweet girl. And she says, because for my sisters, both living and dead, I will march with my Solude, which I'm probably saying wrong, to the gates of Morath. Solde? Yeah, you're right. Because for my sisters, both living and dead, I will march with my Sulde to the gates of Morath and make that demon bastard pay. She met Irene stare. And for you, Irene Towers, for what you did for Duva, I will help you save your land. And then she hugs Hussar.
It's so good.
Yay!
I do like that at the very beginning of that, when Hussar is like, yes, I'll come, she looks at Chaol and says, so you will have to suffer my company for a while yet, Lord Westfall. She's like... So good.
This is why I'm saying, like, I just don't think she can help herself. Like, even when she's on the team, she just can't fucking stop poking people. It's so good. I love her. She's a little shit stirrer.
So Nesryn is tired, drained, can't fall asleep. So she heads up to Kadara's minaret to go say hi, to like give her a little scritchy scratch on the head, maybe, to kind of like kill time. Nesryn headed to Kadara's minaret, and on her way there, a messenger flagged her down and handed her a letter. And it was a letter from her uncle. We don't get told what it says, but we know it's 2 weeks old, and then she was racing up the stairs to the minaret. And then the next thing we knew, she was on a rook that was not Kadara. It's Salki. And she was flying above Antica on her way to her uncle's house. And when she landed, her father was standing there. I really thought it was going to be something bad, and I'm really happy that when she landed, it was because her dad just made it to Antarctica.
It's a good thing.
I was like, oh no, her family's dead. Like, my
she
brain
doesn't
went,
run
oh
in
no.
panic. She runs in, oh my god, they're alive.
I need to see him right now. Of course, I'm sure Kadara, in some manner, told Sartak, hey, by the way, Nesryn has left.
Mm-hmm. She
and
booked
so
it.
Sartak was there within 2 hours. Because he's like, the fuck is going on? And then he realizes, oh, it's just her family has arrived. Which is wonderful. They took a ship to get there. So it took a while.
Yeah, her family.
The cutest thing. I think this whole scene is very cute.
It's
but
so
Kadara
precious.
lands and is next to Sulky. And the kids yell. All of the children, all her cousins, whatever, yell Kadara because everyone knows who Kadara is because it's Sartak's rook. And they start running towards Kadara. And Mom is like, hey, maybe let's not run towards the giant bird. And Kadara puts her head down.
It's so cute. Sartak walks up and is like, I heard Captain Philippe's family had arrived safely. I thought I'd come welcome you myself. And she's like feeling some type of way because Sartak is meeting her dad, which is so cute. And then he says he looked like he might very well keel over dead, either from the gesture of respect or from Kadara's mere presence behind them. Her dad is freaking out. Yeah, all the kids freak out, which is precious.
Kadara and Sulky lower their heads to let them interact with them, which I think is so wonderful. It's such a different dynamic than we were introduced to the wyverns. The wyverns are very on edge and bred to kill, and the
except
rooks,
for Abraxos.
Yeah, except for Abraxos. He still is bred to kill, but
I know, but Abraxos is very much more
a rook.
Approaches people like a rook. Yeah. Than
so
he would nuzzle Lysandra in a second.
Yeah. The idea that the rooks lower themselves to make them smaller so that the kids can interact with them is the most precious thing. Oh, fuck. Hold on. I need them to not. I just keep hearing Jared's feet back and forth. What are they just pacing back and forth past the door? Both of them?
I don't know.
In unison? It's scaring Rocky, which is what's getting
I can't hear anything. Not that doesn't mean it's not being picked up.
I keep seeing him freak out, and now he's in the window, which means he's gonna come this way across my desk potentially. You're okay, Bubba.
We just keep going. We're almost done.
Yeah. So they treat these children as their own, and of course her father apologizes to Sartak, which I think is so cute. I apologize if my grandchildren, nieces, and nephews take some liberties with your rook, Prince. But Sartak smiled broadly, a brighter grin than any she'd seen him give before. Katara pretends to be a noble mount, but she's more of a mother hen than anything. And I was just
and Kadara's so cute with the kids, too.
Nesryn's father squeezed her shoulder before he said to the prince, I think I'll go keep them from trying to fly off on her. It's so
Swallowing
cute.
With a backward glance towards her father, who was now overseeing the gaggle of children attempting to climb onto Sulky and Kadara. So cute.
I'm just picturing them sitting down, legs under them, chickens, heads down, just pulling the kids up onto them and playing as if they're a little jungle gym.
So cute. I can't. So Nesryn and Sartak go on a walk to talk. And Sartak says, I spoke to my father. Nesryn immediately starts panicking and is like, all right, well, this was a nice run. Nothing is going to go well. Everything's terrible. I can't have him because he's a prince and I'm just a commoner, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, we discussed things. And she's like, I see. And he said, I told him that I planned to lead the Rukin against Erewhon with or without his consent. He asked me why. And she says, I hope you told him that the fate of the world might depend on it. Sartak chuckled. I did, but I also told him that the woman I love now plans to head into war and I intend to follow her. She didn't let the words sink in, didn't let herself believe any of it until he finished. He told me that you are common born, that a would-be heir of the Kagan needs to wed a princess or a lady or someone with lands and alliances to offer. Her throat closed up. She tried to shut out the sounds, the words. She didn't want to hear the rest. But Sartak took her hand. I told him if that was what it took to be chosen as heir, I didn't want it, and I walked out. Nesryn sucked in a breath. Are you insane? Sartak smiled faintly. I certainly hope not for the sake of this empire. He tugged her closer until their bodies were nearly touching, because my father appointed me heir before I could walk out of the room. Nesryn left her body, could only manage to breathe. And when she tried to bow, Sartak gripped her shoulders tightly, stopped her before her head could even lower. Never from you, he said quietly. Heir. He had been made heir to all this land she loved, this land she still wished to explore, so much it ached. Sartak lifted a hand to cup her cheek, his calluses scraping against her skin. We fly to war, much is uncertain ahead, save for this. He brushed his mouth against hers, save for what I feel for you. No demon army, no dark queen or king will change that. We will go to war, Nesryn Philique, and when we shatter Erewhon and his armies, when the darkness is at last banished from this world, then you and I will fly back here together. He kissed her again, a bare caress of her mouth. A bare caress of his mouth. And so we shall remain for the rest of our days. She heard the offer, the promise, the world he laid at her feet. It's so fucking cute! Nesryn clasped his face in her hands as she pulled back to war Sartak. Then we'll see what comes after. Sartak gave her a knowing, cocky grin, as if he fully decided what would come after, and nothing she would say would ever convince him otherwise. And from the courtyard just a walk away, her sister shouted loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear, I told you, father!
Let's go!
Her sister's fucking I told you so is the greatest way to end a chapter. I can't.
We were with Nesryn and her dad and uncle and family. And now it is 2 weeks later, and Irene Towers is about to head home on a ship. She is headed north, and on her way out, Caution finds her at the docks, which I think is perfect. Like, I think this goodbye
we gotta wrap up everybody.
Is wonderful. Caution stared at the ship, the others gathered in the harbor, and then he said quietly, I wish I had never said a word to you on the steeps that night. Irene began to shake her head, unsure of what to even say. I have missed having you as my friend, Caution went on. I do not have many of them. I know, she managed. And then added, I missed having you as my friend too. Which I think is the cutest way for the two of them to, like,
yeah,
come back together as friends. He squeezed her hand and said, thank you again for Duva, a small smile toward the northern sky. We shall meet again, Irene Towers. I am certain of it. She smiled back at him. Caution winked, pulling his hand from hers. My Sul Day still blows northward. Who knows what I may find on the road ahead, especially now that Sartak has the burden of being heir, and I'm free to do as I please. It's so good.
We also find out that the city's basically been in an uproar about it. They've been celebrating and debating, but they realized that, like, none of the other heirs, potential heirs that are not heirs anymore, have been attacked or that anything's happened to them. Mm-hmm. So, like, they think that it's not just, like, never Duva, but it's, like, never us now. That they're, like, Sartak's breaking the cycle and is not gonna try to kill any of them. And that they're all just gonna be a family. And Argan better fucking get his shit together.
Yeah, Argan might get his ass kicked, but Yeah.
I think
I
Argan
like
needs to get
this.
his ass kicked a little bit to be put in his place so that he doesn't
Yes.
do anything fucking stupid.
Yeah. A
Sartak
part of her
will
indeed
certainly take
wondered.
care of that, though.
Yeah. This was Irene too wondering, because Irene knew the history. Irene and Nesryn are the only two that really kind of question, like, what is going on. All of the Coggin, like, children in history have kind of, like, fought each other, and she's like, it's such a waste of, like, life to do that.
It's so weird.
Yeah, and very strange. So Irene is the one who indeed wondered if Sartak had struck some unspoken agreement that went beyond Never Duva to perhaps even Never Us. Which is so cute and wonderful.
Yay.
That and, like, Sartak is very smart. Why would he's about to go to war.
Yeah.
His sister and his brother have two of the largest, like, armadas / flying army.
It might have just been like the family rallied together around their like fallen sister, as sad as it is.
Yep. Irene then gets on the ship. She says bye to Caution. That's her last goodbye. She gets on the ship and she's kind of like at the little like thingy, the little like edge of the thing, and she's watching the boat sail away. We're watching the Antica go away in the distance. It was as if all 36 gods of Antica blew a collective breath to send them skittering home across the Narrow. And even when the coast was little more than a shadow, Irene could have sworn she still saw the Torre standing above it, glitting white in the sun, as if it were an arm upraised in farewell. Which to me is like such a beautiful thing. It's like her home.
Bye!
It's Irene's Tower of Dawn.
Irene is the Tower of Dawn.
I think it's hilarious. So that was one chapter. It's Irene's point of view. Then we go to Chaol's. And to start off the chapter of their boat, Chaol loved the fact that he was now with the healer because apparently this bitch gets seasick. And it is such a little funny, just like, has no real bearing on the story that he gets seasick and that she heals him.
Yep.
But let's just, maybe Chaol needs a little bit of a punch to be like, sorry, sir, but you get seasick. Good thing you have a healer on your side. I thought it was so funny. I just wrote, Chaol got seasick, LOL.
He got seasick on the way there, too, but now he just has his healer.
Yeah.
That can help him.
His stomach, of course, is fine every few days. That's fine. We get the information that they're getting near the northern border of Eelway, and they have not seen any sign of Aelin or her armada, but that was to be expected because of their delay leaving. So that's good. Maybe. They also know that they're headed north. So part of their thing is they're heading towards Penharrow and Terrasen and kind of all of that. Chaol moves towards Irene. I don't know where they are. What are they, still on the top deck? Doesn't matter.
They're still up top.
We learn that Chaol and Irene are now married. He peered over Irene's shoulder, down to their interlaced fingers, to the twin rings now gracing both their hands. Watching the horizon won't get us there any faster, he murmured into her neck. Neither will teasing your wife about it. Chaol smiled against her skin. How else am I to amuse myself during the long hours than by teasing you, Lady Westfall?
For someone who hates being called Lord Westfall, Irene mused, you certainly seem to enjoy using the title for me.
Hee.
He also makes some throwaway comment in his head about it had been 2 weeks and they had a small ceremony. Hisar had insisted on a feast afterward that put to shame all others they had in the palace. The princess might have been many things, but she certainly knew how to throw a party. and how to lead an armada. Gods help him when Hussar and Adian meet. It's gonna be so good. Goddamn. So they
We
got
learn,
married.
yeah, and we learn that Hussar's gift to them were the Muniki horses that they rode.
Precious.
Either it was to mock Chaol because the one that he got was Butterfly
Butterfly.
and
Good old Butterfly.
just was giving him a
So
hard
cute.
time, but still thought that was great.
He also proposes to her, like, just fucking randomly out of the blue. She's, like, sitting in the garden, and he just, like, looks at her and just knows.
Mm-hmm.
He'd known what he wanted. He'd known what he wanted, and so he'd gone to her chair, knelt down before it, and simply asked, "Will you marry me, Irene? Will you be my wife?" She'd flung her arms around his neck, knocking them both right into the fountain, where they remained, to the annoyance of the fish, kissing until a servant had pointedly coughed on their way past. So cute.
He also took the gold couch that she like healed him on with him, which I thought was like
Weird
such
one,
a
but all right.
weird, but
Yep.
sure.
Sure.
He brought the gold couch with him.
Whatever. That's so weird. He's weird. Sentimental, but okay.
Yeah. They finally start talking about, well, Irene brings up that she feels like she doesn't need this note anymore in the locket. I wonder if she'll return for this war, whoever she was. She spoke of the Empire like, Irene shook her head. Perhaps she will come home to fight from whatever she sailed off to. She offered him the piece of paper and turned away to the sea ahead. Chaol took the scrap from Irene, the paper velvet soft from its countless readings and foldings, and how she'd held it in her pocket, clutched it all these years. He unfolded the note and read the words he already knew were written within. For wherever you need to go, and then some, the world needs more healers. The waves quieted, the ship itself seemed to pause. Chaol glanced to Irene, smiling serenely at the sea, then to the note, to the handwriting he knew as well as his own. Irene went still at the tears he could not stop from sliding down his face. What's wrong? She would have been 16, nearly 17 then, and if she had been in Inish, it would have been on her way to the Red Desert to train with the silent assassins. The bruises Irene had described, the beating Arab and Hamel had given her as punishment for freeing Rolf's slaves and wrecking Skull's Bay. Chaol, for wherever you need to go, and then some, the world needs more healers. And then, in her handwriting, Chaol looked up at last, blinking away tears as he scanned his wife's face. Every beautiful line, those golden eyes, a gift. A gift from a queen who had seen another woman in hell and thought to reach back a hand, with no thought of it ever being returned. A moment of kindness, a tug on a thread. And even Aelin could not have known that in saving a barmaid from those mercenaries, in teaching her to defend herself, in giving her that gold and this note, even Aelin could not have known, or dreamed, or guessed how that moment of kindness would be answered. Not just by a healer blessed by Silba herself, capable of wiping the Volg away, but by the 300 healers who had come with her. A favor Irene had asked of the man in return, anything the Kagan had promised. Save my people. Chaol folded the note along its well-worn lines and carefully set it back within Irene's locket. Keep it a while longer, he said softly. I think there's someone who will want to see that. Irene's eyes filled with surprise and curiosity, but she asked nothing as Chaol again slid his arms around her and held her tightly. This gave me the leg kicking.
It's so good.
It's the moment that we've been waiting for forever. Of course, she didn't let him get away with it, so he's like, Will I ever hear an explanation for this dramatic reaction? Or are you just going to kiss me for the rest of the day? It's a long story. And you might want to sit down first. Those are my favorite kinds, she said, winking. I'll tell you over lunch. This story of yours had better be worth it. Chaol smiled back at his wife. It is, he said quietly to Irene. It is.
Can we just stop there?
Mm-hmm.
Can we stop there where everything's good and happy and cute and adorable?
The last chapter is very short. It's like, I don't know, a page and a half.
It's basically like, hey, do you remember what happened at the end of the last book? Let's fucking remind you.
Mm-hmm. So they're on their way. We're happy. They're married. They're doing their thing.
So Pack and Nesryn are gonna be together. Irene and Chaol are married.
Yeah.
And they're all coming to fight. Everybody's coming to fight.
Yes. Our teams are reconverging together. And now we have the final chapter of Tower of Dawn, which is not chapter 68. It is just called Fireheart. 69. And anytime, or 69, yeah, sorry. It is not chapter 69. It is called Fireheart. I just said 69 because it's better than saying chapter whatever to Fireheart, because
the last chapter.
Little bit of a dead giveaway. So we flash to Aelin, who, as we know, is being hauled off by Maeve. She's in this tomb of darkness and iron. Because she's surrounded by just iron, she's kind of like in this weird state of like feeling brushes of her power, not like she's in this very weird like body trance, not asleep,
they
kind
also
of
like
asleep.
Pumped stuff into the coffin basically to like make her sleep.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really know how long it's been. And she doesn't know where she is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just really disoriented and
in a lot of pain because she got whipped to shit before she got put in it too.
Yep.
Light pretty much started blinding her and she didn't know what was going on. It was her sarcophagus coffin thing was being opened. They have apparently reached their destination, which we are unsure what that is. The first thing she sees is dark flowing hair, moon pale skin, lips as red as blood, the ancient queen's mouth parted in a smile, teeth as white as bone. You're awake. Good. The queen's huntsman, the queen's blade. He hauled the princess upright, her body a distant, aching thing. She did not want to slide back into this body. Struggled against it, clawing for the flame and the darkness that now ebbed away from her like a morning tide. But the huntsman yanked her closer to that cruel, beautiful face, watching with a spider's smile. And he held her still as that ancient queen purred, "Let's begin." I think the end of this book is worse than the end of the other book.
Mm-hmm.
Because that right there, I'm like, the fuck do you mean? Let's begin. Begin what? What are we doing? Who is this huntsman? Is it just her right-hand man?
It's Cairn.
Oh, I guess that's true. Could be.
That's what they call him.
The huntsman?
Her blade?
Oh.
Because that's basically what Rowan was before.
Oh, I guess that's fair.
So that's it.
I'm sadder at the end of this one than the other one, but it's because of the last chapter.
I know. That's what I'm saying. The last
page and a half. If you were to not do the tandem read, You do need to read this one second. Because of that chapter. It was a dead giveaway from Empire of Storm. But, or it would just be foreshadowing for
Yeah,
it
was foreshadowing. Which was still good. It was, because I mean, like, it's pretty vague still.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know when it's going to happen. It's vague enough that, like, I knew it was good. But I already knew it was going to be bad going into reading this first because they fucking tell, like, everybody knows, basically. The end of fucking Empire of Storms is a heinous cliffhanger. I'm like, okay, great. So by the time I got to the end of this one, I was like, ah, great, cool, great. Yep, knew that already.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's the end of our tandem read. And next
one more.
will be Kingdom
One
of
more
Ash.
book left. Even though it's 900 pages. Yep. How many pages is this, actually? It's not even 900 pages. It's more than that. 980 pages.
I'm gonna read a contemporary romance between now and the start of that
buddy.
book. That's gonna be a lot.
No, I would recommend that, actually. You're gonna need some joy. Oh, Lord.
Need some, maybe Emily Henry or somebody. Gotta figure out what book I'm gonna read.
You gotta read Scythe and Sparrow.
Oh, yeah.
You got so many options. You haven't read Deep End either, right?
Correct. You said it wasn't gonna be my favorite.
Did I say Deep End wasn't gonna be your favorite, or the Dream Girl drama one wasn't gonna be your favorite? Because I don't know if you're gonna love Tessa Bailey's new book.
Insta love.
Yes, that's why. Oh. I thought that was the one that I said that you weren't gonna super love.
I don't remember. I thought you said Deep End was the Insta love one.
No, that's Dream Girl drama is the Insta love one. Because it's Sig. Sig was like, oh my god, I've been obsessed with her forever. I'm like, okay.
Since your one date.
Yeah. Since he heard her voice is what it says in the book. And I'm like, but chill. Relax. You could read... There's so many things you could read.
I'll probably read Scythe and Sparrow.
Scythe and Sparrow was fun. I did enjoy that.
I still have to do Beach Read. I don't know, what else do I got over here? I read Business Casual. Icebreaker, Wildfire, I have to read those still.
You could also read First Time Caller, since you finished Business Casual.
Yeah, sure.
That is the last episode of the Tandem Read. Thank you guys so much for checking out the episode, and we hope that you enjoy your time here. You can find us at the Smut Peddlers on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for additional content. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.